Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Solasta. It's been a while. As today we finally check out the 4th DLC, Palace of Ice. And the first one, designed to let us run past level 10, 10 to 16 I believe. Apparently this adventure also lets us import our original party, so that we can continue their adventures, which is tempting. I mean, I did share an entire series with these guys. But, you know, I do like working new raiders into the mix whenever possible, and Tactical Adventures was kind enough to give me a copy of the Inner Strength DLC. It does feel like a shame not to actually use it. That said, Wirth will remain, because we still need a narrative link back to the original campaign. But let's meet the rookie deputies, who will now be dogging her footsteps. Varshun, the zealous paladin of Einar. King's Rook, insightful follower of Pakri. Henrik's busy getting an intervention for his ghost orb addiction. And Russell, because every party's got to have one scoundrel. And, you know, wanted to try out the new Bard class. Will this new merry band of murder hobos be enough to navigate the perils of the Palace of Ice? I mean, likely. We've never really had too much trouble with that in the past, but I guess we'll find out. Solasta, Palace of Ice. Let's check it out.
Previously, in Crown of the Magister.
Once sworn in, you will carry the authority of the Council wherever you go.
I swear.
Her Royal Highness has a busy schedule.
They were Soraks, our attackers. Not scavengers, not bandits. Soraks.
Bring us the head of a Sorak for the whole council to see.
They didn't die easily.
Thankfully, we prevailed.
There's something else.
A crown?
This is indeed the crown of the Magister, belonging to Kazorm, eternal soul of the 8 traditions.
Adrastea, the prudent shield, master of abjuration, in your debt and at your service. I feel your spirit in the crown, Kazorm.
The Magister is still in the crown?
We're not at war yet.
But Galavan's massing troops at the border.
Bad news really does travel fast.
The city's Imperial Gate.
They're here!
They're trying to get away with the crown. Look! The princess?
The crown needs you. I felt it from the beginning. Kazorm's spirit calls for you to save him from the darkness. When you are ready, step onto the gate and fulfill your destiny.
I was right about you. I must go now. Take care of Solasta. Take care of your world.
Well, not entirely accurate, but close enough. When the rift closed, Sortar, the Sorak god still on Tirmar, and his hordes of minions were no longer a threat. The heroes were celebrated throughout the Principality of Masgarth and beyond. The Council of Caer Kiflin named them Heroes of Solasta. The heroes of the Rift are on their way to the Anarium. They have been invited by Marshal Sunblaze, who seemed particularly worried in the letter he sent them. After one last night on the road, they wake up less than a day's walk from their destination.
Morning, everyone.
So here we are. Just a few more hours, and we'll be able to sleep in a bed.
Well, the Anarium is basically a church, not a hostel.
I don't think Beric's Sunblaze and his paladins sleep on the ground, though.
Come on, pack your stuff. Let's not linger.
I still don't understand why we're not in Gallivan looking for what's left of the Sorax.
Marshal Sunblaze is obsessed with them. I'm pretty sure he wants to tell us about them.
We'll know what he wants soon enough.
All right, gather your stuff.
Not sure which one is mine. I'll pick one at random.
Hey, nobody touches my underwear.
No chance of that.
Truly an epic start to our adventure. Love that expression on Varshun, though. Right, so my headcanon here is that after the original campaign, our OG party broke up, with each of them taking a new team of fledgling deputies, fledgling being a relative term, of course, they are level 10, under their wing to train up and help replenish the losses suffered during the Sorak incident. We just happened to be following Yvreth's team. Also worth noting, if we were running with the OG party, things would actually be easier on us. Technically, by swapping out 3 characters, we've ramped up the difficulty, because as you can see, Yvreth already has a level in the queue. In fact, she's got 2, because it turns out the original campaign gave more than enough experience to get all the way up to level 12. It just capped at 10. But in this case, I think it actually works out pretty nicely from a narrative standpoint, because it makes it clear that she is the veteran of the group, with the other 3 acting as her trainees. Not to mention, of course, that she also comes in with all the gear she was still carrying at the end of the original campaign, that all imported with her. I will stress, though, she only came out with the stuff she was already carrying. I did not go out of my way to swap any additional gear from the rest of the party. As far as I'm concerned, all that gear went with them so that they could go and use it to help train their own squads. That said, she will, of course, hand off some of the excess to help us get the rest of our trainees properly equipped. But not to the degree you might otherwise expect, because it turns out that the developers were actually kind enough to leave new parties an assortment of useful goods. So we should have more than enough to get our guys pretty well equipped here. Not quite OG party levels, because, I mean, those guys had an absurd mix of items by the end of the campaign. But this should be enough to get us going. There's even some new stuff in here for the new classes. They actually do match the chest in front of each character, roughly, with their class. Just a pre-assorted mix of items, which is a nice touch. That said, it will take me a moment to sort all this stuff out, get our guys properly equipped. So, let me take care of that real quick, and the adventure will begin. We'll be right back. Hey, we're back. Rested, re-equipped, and ready to go. Let's have a quick gander at what our guys actually have equipped, just to give you an idea of what we're running with. Obviously, Yvreth is still running with all of her original gear. But for Varshun, he is a sword and board paladin, so I equipped him accordingly. The heavy crossbows just for those rare occasions where we actually need range support. And King's Rook, although he expressed a predilection for spears and javelins, we had to work with what we've got. But we'll keep an eye out, we'll see if we can find a nice spear for him. And Russell. Russell is actually going to be range-based, because I saw little reason for a bard to mix it up in melee. But he does have a pair of thin blades, you know, if it comes up. Sadly, we cannot do Yvreth's level up yet. It won't actually let us rest here, so we'll have to wait until we've gotten to our first real campsite. We also cannot set our spells yet, but we do have a default mix. I'll have to get that taken care of once we find our camp. Speaking of which, onward, my friends. Adventure awaits. Probably in this direction. Oh, yes, we have a marker on the compass. Okay, that makes it easier. The inscription on this long-forgotten statue is eroded by time and overgrown with moss. It looks like a Vestal of Aenar, erected to proclaim that this land was under the protection of the Aenarium. Neat. Seeing some cover terrain, so let's proceed with caution. A fallen ancient Manichalan ruin, redolent of the ghosts of the Empire and border conflict. Imperial banners from antiquity somehow still remain, torn in slave revolts during the War of Sorrow.
Believe it!
Yes, that does make sense. This is Dungeons & Dragons after all. You gotta get some action into the intro. Roadside encounters do make for decent warm-up fights. Looks like 3 archers and 1 melee. Slightly range heavy. Okay, let's let Russell do his thing. Neutralize that melee. Flute and plunder. Okay, that gets him off our back for now, though he will attack our other party members if they get too close, so we'll just leave him to chat with Russ for a bit. Make sure his last few moments are pleasant, because we will still have to kill him before this fight is through. Just the nature of the game. Let's get our own melee after their archers. Should make for a fairly lopsided battle. You almost feel bad for these guys. Though I will note that Wirth is currently a bit handicapped in the mobility department, because she swapped out her boots of striding and springing right before the end of the first campaign. So right now she's still rocking her slippers of spider climbing, which are great for vertical movement, but less so for horizontal.
No! More!
We'll use this guy as a living shield. Then we'll have Rook flank the wagon tail. The important thing is basically just to force these guys to waste actions disengaging. Though we can't actually reach that last one, so we'll just double team this guy. In fact, this is a good time to strut some battle magic.
Einar, Encho, Malvis.
Nice. That'll make sure that Wirth's cover doesn't go wandering off somewhere.
Oh!
Not that it really helped, she still took a ding.
Yeah.
And lightning on Rook as well. Though he definitely won that exchange. Russ is back up. Let's provide some range support. Allstwall continuing to chat up our new friend here, having a smashing good time.
Oh, take that.
You'll notice he has some unconventional spells for a bard. That's because he is a student of the College of Lore. I thought it was important to get a couple of utility spells in there. You know, stuff like Counterspell, Misty Step, things that we wouldn't have access to without a proper arcane caster.
That's the way. No.
Archer 1 is out. Where'd the other one get off to? Come on, man, that's Bush League. King's Rook continues his pursuit. Oh, and notice in the feed up top that he has Distracting Gambit. Probably not the best thing I could have spent a feat slot on, but I did want these guys to feel like they had trained together, like they had support skills to help each other in battle. And in this case, distracting Gambit allows him to debuff enemies with his strikes, reducing their AC, which would make things slightly easier for the rest of the party. Likewise, Varshoon has defensive fighting style to help shield nearby allies, and Russell's a bard. I mean, they're basically the distilled essence of support class.
You cannot defeat me!
Yeah! Ah!
You good? Alright, just hang tight. I'll be right back.
Die!
Nice. Solid hit from Russ. And you're done, son. So much for our tribals. Well, almost. It'll be over shortly. Varshoon. One thing I will say is that it is a bit weird to hear familiar voices coming out of these new faces. But I mean, that's just the nature of the game of Solasta, you know? They made a very bold decision to voice all of the dialogue in the game with multiple variable voice sets. While it would be nice to have a wider variety of voices to pick from, even just doing that with 6 voices is already pretty excessive.
Perfect!
Solasta is very much a low-budget indie game. Hence why I tend to cut them a lot of slack in the voice acting department.
Wait till the next one.
Natura Divo Malmis.
Alright, buddy. Hate to do it, but it's time for a smash cut.
You'll get a nice scar.
Ow. Actually, I guess there's no real reason to be shy with spell slots. We're almost certainly going to be resting right after this intro. As per the ancient unwritten rules of tabletop RPGs, you have but one roadside encounter between each major location. Oh, nice.
truly formidable.
I didn't expect an attack so close to the Inarium.
They're in uniform. They're not bandits.
Mercenaries from Galivan.
So deep into the Principality's territory.
Don't be fooled. They didn't come to invade. They came for us.
Let's move. We need to speak to Marshal Sunblaze.
Still voiced, but no cinematic to go with it. That's fair, I suppose. I mean, it was a pretty basic conversation. Let's grab our loot and be on our way. Also, we did take a few hits there, which is unexpected, because we're not exactly slouches when it comes to AC. I think everyone but Russell's got over 20. I think Barshoon actually pushes 30 with shield. That does speak to the ramped up difficulty of this campaign. They definitely tried to take things up a notch or 3. Which I imagine might become an issue. They may have overreacted to general criticisms of the original Crown of the Magister campaign being too easy. I will say, as part of setting up for this series, I actually did have to go back and replay the end of Crown of the Magister, just to make sure the save exported properly. And they did fine-tune that final encounter, which we sort of breezed through back in the original series. And I will say, it is more difficult, but not necessarily in a good way. I've never made it a secret that I am not a fan of the legendary action mechanic. And the way they modified it was basically to add a lot more legendaries, so... Man, oh man. Poor Lady Adrastea. She got nuked by legendaries in like 2 turns. Rolled in, breathed fire on a few foes, then got legendaried to death, while the rest of our party whittled the like 3 or 4 legendary Sorax on the field. It was a surprisingly tough fight, but not one of those ones where like the difficulty felt satisfying. More one of those fights where it feels like the game master just really doesn't want you to win, so they start twisting the rules every which way. Because they feel like you're not struggling enough with their epic finale. Okay, I think we're good. I was hoping we'd find a clue or something on one of these bodies, but I guess not. Just vendor trash, which honestly we don't have much use for, considering we're currently carting 11,000 gold. But we'll take it. Who knows what awesome gear they might have for sale when we get back to town. Maybe there is stuff that will require us to scrimp and save again. Onward, my friends. Are we there? Is this another random encounter? Oh, no. Okay, we're here. And also taking everything that's not nailed down, as heroes do. As far as crafting goes, we have Barshoon for basic potions, we have Russell for magic item crafting. I believe Wirth can still do basic smithing for like arrows and such. But yeah, I went ahead and skipped poisons this time. As a general rule, Sorax are resistant to poison, so it just felt silly to have a poison specialist. Which may also play into why Sir Dialot didn't make a return appearance. Sorry, sir. This imposing and majestic statue of the divine warrior stands tall and proud in full plate armor, holding a shield emblazoned with a fiery cross. A feeling of surety emanates from its presence. As far as religious iconography goes, I feel like flaming crosses is one you should probably avoid, but, what do I know? Marshal Sunblaze, I presume. Yeah, I know you.
My friends, it is so good to see you again.
Likewise, Marshal. We came as fast as we could.
Great, thanks. You must have many questions.
But something came up that I have to take care of, right away. You've been traveling all day. You should take a rest. We'll talk tomorrow morning.
Fine. Where can we set up camp?
Ah, you're pulling my leg, aren't you? We have a room set aside for you. Please, make yourselves comfortable.
Thank you, Marshal.
Nice. So that'll give us an opportunity to reset our spells and bump Wirth up to level 12. This way. There was another named NPC in there with them, but I'm sure we'll find out about her soon. Lightbringer longbow. Ah, so now they're hiding recipes in lore books. Alright, I'll bite. The Snow Alliance. A brief introduction by Malian Trefoil. Having spent years trading with the people of the Snow Alliance, I have found there are a few things one ought to know if one wishes to understand both them and their culture. Firstly, the mountains they live amongst are bitterly cold, harsh, and unforgiving. Come equipped for extremes. It was on my first mountain hike with locals that I discovered that the people of this area have 67 words for snow. No wonder the national emblem takes the form of a snowflake. Several pages seem to have been carefully cut out. It was on my fourth visit that I first truly felt accepted. A terrible avalanche had struck the village, able to extract not only ourselves and save the children, but also recover food and supplies while the villagers of fighting age fought off a roaming group of Peak's terrors. Never underestimate these people or their reserves of strength and hardiness. No wonder they survived not only the cataclysm, but also the War of Sorrow. The last pages describe the writer's retirement in the north. Upon returning to the Principality for my last trade mission, I found that, like my adoptive clan, I too had become cautious of southern strangers, and mistrusting of their too obvious motives. I now looked upon the soft hands and faces of the people of Masgarth and saw their eyes light up with avarice, grasping at the beautifully crafted gems and jewels I brought with me. It was only the Principality's gold, and the much-needed supplies they would buy, that helped calm those fears. Interesting. A little world building for the Frozen North, which is where I imagine we're headed. Not to mention they name-dropped Peak Terrors, which are creatures I imagine we will soon encounter. Crown of the Magister, that's us. That's our thing. Dear reader, in this tome, if you would indulge me, I would like to take the time to record for posterity the astonishing tale of the most marvelous group of adventuring heroes to grace Solasta. A group so true of purpose that their actions ensured the well-being and safety of our beloved Principality, placing themselves repeatedly in such untold danger that we may one day be free of the menace of the Drakiith. May the blessings of Einar be upon them. This new and remarkably hefty volume contains a painstakingly detailed telling of the adventurer's story to date. I'll have to make sure we get copies of that to send to the rest of the party. Istvan in particular will get a kick out of that, I think. He was our actual crown bearer. Though apparently Wirth remembers it slightly differently. Which is fair, I mean. I think it was pretty well established throughout the original campaign that we had some Guardians of the Galaxy Infinity Stone stuff going on. Istvan wore it, but everyone shared its power. Nice. Okay. Now, let's get Wirth's level up taken care of. We've got hit points, new spells, and Swift Retaliation. Whenever an opponent attacks you from a nearby cell, you are granted an immediate melee attack against that opponent. Excellent, because that's exactly what Wirth needed. More attacks. Let's see what else she's got. Ability choice, favorite enemy. At home in the dark. Interesting. And ability choice. Okay, so nothing too groundbreaking. We also pick up a new spell slot, and given that I have no idea if and when we'll find another pair of Boots of Striding and Springing, I think we need to pick up Longstrider. I think she actually had that spell during her early adventures, but we likely swapped it out when she found those boots. Level 12, more hit points, more spells, and a feat. I mean, we could boost ability points, that would be a solid get, but I've got to say, that always feels kind of boring to me. Even if we could use 20 in Dex. That aside, they actually did add an assortment of new feats since last time we played, so let's see if anything catches our eye. Cloak and Dagger. After you hit an enemy with a light weapon, you gain +2 AC until the start of your next turn. I've got to say, that sounds pretty appealing. I mean, Wirth stabs things pretty much constantly, so that bonus would be active most of the time she's in combat. It's the equivalent of 4 points of Dex. Though, of course, we would lose the offensive benefits of just boosting our Dex to 20. Oh, Forest Runner, that's also an option. That would help offset her mobility problems and give her +1 Dex, which we could then later round out with another feat at 16? Like Uncanny Accuracy, maybe? Then again, waiting 4 levels to actually get her Dex up to a functional increment feels kind of silly, so you know what, we'll just go for Cloak and Dagger. But, you know, feel free to complain at me down in the comments below about not taking that Dex. I know it was the more practical choice, but like I said, so boring. Spells. Okay, so Varshun is more of a battle caster than a healer. But we don't really have a lot to choose from here, so we're going to have to kind of go all over the place. Especially since he does not have flawless concentration, so we don't want to rely too heavily on concentration spells. I mean, honestly, he'll be burning most of his slots on Smite and Shield anyway, with the occasional hold person on the side. One slot left. I don't like heroism. Lesser Restoration. I mean, Rook's got a lock on healing, but always nice to have a backup. Speaking of whom, let's get Rook set up. And as just mentioned, we want to go heavy on the healing. We'll take pretty much all of the restorative and curing spells, plus a few support on the side, like Guiding Bolt. And, of course, the oft overused Spirit Guardian, still one of the finest spells in the entire game. He'll just use it slightly more sparingly than Henrik. Slightly. Maybe. I mean, I say that now, but we'll see how the difficulty curve goes. I think we're good. I might be overlooking something, but y'all can just comment down below if you feel like there's something else I should work into our rotation. For now, we move on. Oh, I thought that would kick us into another scene, but apparently not. Recipes. Whiteburn crossbow and Boots of the Frozen North. Both of which we're already familiar with from previous campaigns. Surviving in the Great White. Starting to notice a bit of a theme here. Oh, by Arwen Merton. We know him. That was a character who got caught up in some pretty nasty carnage, from what I recall. Several missing, torn, and smudged pages that make any understanding it difficult. Really gotta step up on that proofreading, guys. The clues took me ever north from Masgarth. North into the cold mountains of the Snow Alliance and then beyond. A whispering voice beckoning me onwards. I needed to see if the rumors I had heard were true. What would I find? The people of the clans thought I was mad, foolish, or both. In hindsight, I now wonder at my own sanity. What possessed me to push on so far? There's a reason the people of the Snow Alliance call it the Great White. Arwen wanders off topic in order to describe the passing scenery and his journey to the north for several pages. For that reason, I made sure to craft Boots of the Winterland, forged armor of frost walking, and just for good measure took my Ring of Cold Resistance and a Scroll of Fire Shield. In my second week, far north of Valkarakopun, one of the Great White's lethal blizzards descended, howling from the north, roaring death in my ears. Boulders crashed down the mountainside, and the wind froze my breath instantly. I realized I was lost, and mysterious shapes lurked beyond in the swirling white. Many pages are water-soaked. The ink has bled through the pages, and many have stuck together. You know, typos aside, I do like that they now have those little narrative blurbs to explain why you only get fragments of the book as opposed to the whole thing. I mean, obviously, it does strain credulity that they'd have a book with, like, 2 actual legible pages in it, sitting on a shelf. But you know, still, I appreciate the effort. And, obviously, they're also trying to keep them a bit more focused this time around, aside from hiding recipes inside these lore books to incentivize you to at least pick them up. They do seem to be going out of their way to try to present more coherent, focused world building on things that we are likely to run into. Whereas in the previous games, there were some that were like that, some that were more directly relevant to whatever we were trying to do at the time, or to hint at things to come. But then there were a lot that were just like a lot of general world building that, while interesting, had little to no bearing on the actual game, like the things you actually had to do. Also, I noticed that this is actually slightly different than I remember. I believe it was just a cold resistance item back in the original campaign. But now they specifically mention that it also protects from cold weather, which does seem to imply we've got some new extreme temperature mechanics. Yeah, see, the scale armor of Frostwalking has that too. Immune to the effects of moderately cold weather, and immunity to a new frozen condition type. That is intriguing, and does seem to imply that we might want to at least consider making some of this stuff. If and when we can track down a Manacallan Rosary. Unfortunately, we did not start with one. There's actually a few items here I wouldn't mind crafting. But unfortunately we have basically 0 crafting supplies right now because Istvan was the crafter in our previous party, and he took all that stuff with him when he left. I guess we'll have to see if the developers thought to include an ingredient vendor in the starting town. Let's check out the other shelf. Bracers of Storms, Stormbinder Warhammer, Stormblade Longsword. Okay, electrical theme this time, gotcha. The War of Sorrow. Again, tangentially linked to the Snow Alliance and the Frozen North. So yeah, definitely a unified theme on these lore books. The only outlier being the one about us. The War of Sorrows. This ancient and crumbling tome appears to be from around the time the Magister closed the rift. Many pages crumble to dust on contact, or have faded beyond legibility. It was late summer when I, Arne Svarthar, received the first reports from the clans to the north. My advisors dismissed them as the ravings of the insane. 2 parties of brave volunteers I sent. Only dark tidings returned. It was then that I knew a great evil was abroad. A vast, decaying horde of undead. A monstrous tidal wave, at the front of which, mounted on a skeletal horse, an undead warrior with glowing red eyes. More pages seem to have succumbed to the years. Farming and hunting are all but impossible. Settlement after settlement has been laid waste. This winter is evil and harsh. Crumbled and torn pages. All of us have lost too many clansfolk. But we remain indomitable. Our new alliance has fought with every last sinew. We will make our final stand at White Rock City. The pages are water-soaked, ink has bled through the pages, and many have stuck together. Only the claw amulets were found. The next part is unintelligible. All is lost. The constant cold dark drains us. The banners of our Snow Alliance fall. So few of us left. As far as the eye can see, the land defiled by swarms of undead. Yet more pages have succumbed to the years. A miracle! A brilliant white light to the southwest, roaring north, east, and west. Temporarily blinded and deafened, we reeled. When our senses returned, we could not believe our eyes. The monstrous undead, every single foul creature that had filled the horizon, choking the field of battle, had crumbled to dust. Can this be true? Is this war of sorrow over? Right, that would mark the original closing of the portal, the one that shattered the lands and created the post-apocalyptic landscape we are now rebuilding on. Also a bit more context on the Snow Alliance, who again, we're almost certainly going to be meeting. And a mention of a red-eyed skeletal warrior. I have to imagine that's something we'll encounter at some point. Remnants of the undead horde. Nothing notable on the bracers. Just basic electrical resistance. I was wondering if they were going to hint at more weather-based effects like the other items did, because I have not actually played this yet. So for the most part, I'll be exploring the content right alongside you, unless of course you've already played it yourself, in which case I'm sure it will be very frustrating to see me stumble my way through content that you have already mastered. That's it. We are past time, so I feel like this is a good place to call it. It is great to be back, though. You know, Solasta is a janky indie game, but it's one that I love nonetheless. It's got a lot of charm, and there are a lot of things they do well. That said, we'll hit the pause button for now. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. And we will pick up here next time. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Revenant, Alois, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, Theory V23, EgonAlter, Emile, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Kazorm, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Rowan, Tomasz, Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.
No chance of that.